Hello guys, it is me again, it's HorrorFan34, and I have been tagged once again. I was tagged by my good friend Rob, also known as MovieReviewTime. He's a really great friend of mine, been a friend of mine for many years on here. Ever since I found him way back in 2009, we've been friends ever since. And his tags have been a lot of fun to do as well. So this was another tag that was created by him. It's 12 questions, and it deals with the Jason franchise. It's called the His Name Was Jason tag, created by MovieReviewTime. So, and I think Rob pretty much listed everybody that I would have tagged, like Alex and Justin, things like that. So I'm going to leave it open to anybody who wants to do this tag. Last Venom 76, if you want to do this, things like that. So I'm leaving this tag open to anybody who hasn't been tagged if they want to do it. So I'm not going to name specific people, but if you want to do this tag, I'm leaving it open to anybody who wants to do this one. And let's get on to my answers to these questions, if I can talk right. Question number 1. Now, since there's 12 Jason films in the franchise, each question deals with one movie at a time. So, question number 1: what was your favorite kill in the original film? That's really a tie between me, because I really enjoyed Kevin Bacon's death with the arrow through the neck, and Pamela Voorhees getting her head cut off by Alice. So that's really a tie between the two of them, I would say. But if I had to lean more towards one, it would have to be Alice killing Pamela Voorhees. That's like really iconic. Question number 2. In part 2, Adrienne King filmed her scenes in 2 days. Did you like that they killed her off? For me, I can see why they killed her off, because I think around this time Adrienne King was dealing with that whole stalker incident. I didn't like the fact that they killed her off, because I really liked her from the first film. I mean, she's my favorite final girl. Her and Amy Steele were kind of a toss-up for me for my favorite final girl, but at least we got Ginny, Amy Steele's character, in part 2, so that made up for that. But it would have been kind of cool if they would have kind of kept Alice's character alive, because that way, maybe for my idea for Freddy vs. Jason, you can have some of the survivors from the original films of Jason team up with the Nightmare on Elm Street girls who are still alive, and go and have them go up against Freddy vs. Jason. I think that would be a cooler idea. But I didn't like the fact that they killed off Adrienne King, but I can see why they did. But at the same time, though, at least we got Amy Steele's character, Ginny. Question number 3. In part 3, did you think that the 3D aspect worked? In some scenes it did, yes. Especially one scene, a couple scenes really stood out to me, like, Jason with the pitchfork coming towards the screen. Of course, the one guy's head being squeezed and his eyeball comes out. I mean, that was probably the best 3D look of the movie. So I think for the most part, the 3D aspect did work. Question number 4. In part 4, who is your favorite character besides Jason? This is, I could not wait to get to this question. It's a tie for me for first place between Jimbo and Ted. I think I've told you guys many times before that me and Alex, my good buddy Alex 2.0, we have this whole joke between each other how he's Jimmy and I'm Ted. We and Alex did a little skit me and him did together about the corkscrew, where he's Jimbo and I'm Ted, and he really put it together really well. I'm going to try to remember this time to put that in the description box down below to let me guys know what you think of that, because it was a really well done, put together little skit that Alex did. It was actually Alex's idea to do that skit, and it turned out really well. We have got a lot of positive feedback on that, so really appreciate the support from the people that have seen it so far. But for anybody who hasn't seen it yet, Lisa, Jason, and Sean, things like that, if you haven't seen that little skit that me and Alex did, I'll put that in the description box down below, and I'll let you guys have your own opinion of what you think. But that's easily for my Part 4, my favorite character besides Jason, it's a tie between Jimmy and Ted, just because of the whole joke me and Alex had between each other with that. Question number 5. In Part 5, what happened between Pam and Tommy when he was going to stab her? That's really one of the ones that really was like up in the air. Maybe he didn't stab her. That's my assumption. Maybe he stopped himself. Who knows? I mean, it's always kind of a fun idea to like think about what happened after that. Because in Part 6, they don't really like explain that. So I really would like, I don't really know. I mean, it could have gone either way. I mean, who knows? That's really kind of a tough question to ask, but it's a really good question at the same time. Question number 6. In Part 6, did you like the fact that they brought Jason back as a corpse? I think when they brought Jason back as a corpse, it was really, really cool looking. I really did like the way they brought Jason back. Jason, when you first see him, he's all nothing. Like, there's like nothing there. And the fact that Jason comes back as a corpse, it was just so cool looking with the lightning striking down on the coffin. And Part 6, I'll get into that when I review the Jason films at some point down the road. But I like the fact that they brought him back as a corpse. Question number 7. In Part 7, was bringing in the Tina character ruining the franchise, or was it a good change? To me personally, I think this was a really good change for the franchise, because basically, I know this was around the same time still where New Line Cinema and Paramount couldn't get an agreement together to make Freddy vs. Jason. So then for Part 7, they decided, okay, you know what, we're going to do Jason vs. Carrie. And I think that was a cool idea. I really like Laura Park Lincoln as Tina, and even the little girl version of Tina in the beginning of Part 7, Jennifer Banco, who was the little girl in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, who was sitting on Leatherface's lap in Part 3. That's the little girl who was in that film was young Tina in Part 7. But I really like Laura Park Lincoln, and I really like that cast too. Laura Park Lincoln, Terry Kaiser, Bernie from Weekend at Bernie's. That was the first appearance as Kane Hodder as Jason. Of course, I met Kane Hodder before. I really like the fact that they brought in something like that. I think it was a really cool change, and I thought it was a cool fight between those two. So I really like that they added that to the franchise. Question number 8. In Part 8, did you like that they put Jason in the New York setting? I do, yes, but I really do think they should have capitalized it on a lot more, because a lot of it wasn't really in New York particularly. It was more on a boat. So I really do think they could have had more stuff in New York, but I think because of the budget, they couldn't really do a whole lot in New York. But there were still some really cool shots around New York, and I like that Jason was in a different setting in the big city. There's a couple of fun sequences in Part 8. I was always one of those guys that never hated Part 8. I actually never minded Part 8. I actually think it's a bit underrated in my opinion. I like the fact that Jason was in a different environment. Question number 9. In Part 9, what is your thought on Jason possessing bodies? Part 9 was always the one that was like my least favorite of the franchise. I don't hate the movie at all. I think it's a pretty decent flick. I kind of like the whole idea. Like it was a little something different where Jason does possess bodies. Like it was a cool idea. I do admit that it was a really cool idea. But Part 9, I just much rather prefer having Jason on screen more, just doing his thing and things like that. Question number 10. In Part 10, did the plot to Jason X make any sense? No, it didn't. I love Jason X as a really fun guilty pleasure, but you got to admit the story made absolutely no sense whatsoever. Question number 11. In Freddy vs. Jason, did you want Kane Hodder as Jason, or would you have kept Ken Kersinger? That's without a doubt, Kane Hodder. Kane Hodder. Imagine Kane Hodder and Robert Englund fighting it off together. I mean, you have the longest tenured Freddy, who's the only person that's played Freddy besides Jackie Earle Haley in the remake. But then you get the guy who played Jason the most. He played Jason in 4 straight movies. Part 7, Part 8, Part 9, and Part 10. Kane Hodder was in all 4 films. Like every other film was always a different actor. and having the longest tenured Freddy and the longest tenured Jason go at it together would have been a lot cooler. I just didn't like the fact that they did not get Kane Hodder. I mean, nothing against Ken Kersinger. I'm not saying it's his fault. I mean, I have nothing against Ken Kersinger personally. Like, I think he did fine as Jason, but it really should have been Kane Hodder. And the last question number 12, in the remake, what are your thoughts of not having a sequel? This is the one thing that always bummed me out about the remake, that we never got a sequel. It's going to be 10 years next year in February since the remake came out, and I just don't understand the fact that it did really well. I mean, critics slammed it, of course. I mean, because it's a Jason film. I mean, what do people expect? It's not going to be an Oscar contender. It's a slasher film, and it still did well. It made, I think a little over $80 million. I think it was a pretty big hit. It was much bigger than the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, and of course that didn't get a sequel. Well, which understandably so. I mean, it wasn't as successful. At least I don't think it was. But the Jason remake was. People like Derek Mears as Jason. I like Derek Mears as Jason, and I really wish he would have gotten a sequel. And I'm just bummed that they never did one. I don't understand why it's been taking them so long to make another Jason film. I mean, you can make it for like $10 million, and you can make a double back on your opening weekend, guaranteed. So I don't know why they never made a sequel. That always really annoyed me. But anyways, thanks a lot for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Alright guys, take care.